DIY video, I talked about adding a USB connector to my handlebars, which I added right down here, and that was for my phone mount. And I also mentioned that there was a gap that I was going to look at fixing when it started to get a little bit cold outside. And it just happens to be cold outside. So I'm going to work on this gap right here and see if I can make an adjustment so that I can close this gap up so that it's what I would consider a proper distance. See if I can get this a little bit closer. You can see where there's some things holding this part from connecting with the proper gap. So I'm gonna take it off. Probably be easier to do it right here. Remove a few parts. I could take these out right now. And let's take this out. These both come out pretty easy. And you can see here there's a whole series of screws holding this pad in place. So we're gonna be removing that. There's a screw here. And it looks like there's one down, let's get that shadow out of there, one down here, down there, and I think those hold this on down in this area. I don't think there's anything under here, but once I get the trunk off and take it in the house, I can check that out. Anyone that's watching this right now probably already has a bike like this, but if you don't and you're just curious, to remove the trunk, you basically pull up these two levers here. Now I've already removed the screw, and so those two things come out like that. Nope, I guess I did. Now the other thing is, down here you have electrical connection, which is coming from the back of the seat and comes back into the trunk here. But there's a little shelf here, but the connector that's right here doesn't usually stay up here very well, so I put a tie strap. So we're going to clip that off, and then once I clip that off, then we'll just pop this trunk right off and take it in the house. Okay, first step's done. Taking the trunk off from the motorcycle, wiped it down, brought it inside, propped it up. I had to use a paint can under the back just to get it level so I could open up the cover here. And it's pretty stable. Okay, I've got the wrench, and it looks like it's an M8 or something. It's pretty large. There's 3 bolts. I've already taken this one out. We'll see if they're the same length. Here's the pad. These 3 here. A little dusty. Set that over here. Okay, I've moved around to the other side now, and these are the 3 screws that held on that pad. Okay, here are those bolts again. We've got one down in the corner right here. We have this one right here. We have this one down here. That's those 3 that you get from the inside. And then the 4th one we get from, let's see if I can move this around, right up here. Okay, I worked on one side. I didn't film it. I found an easier way to do this. Now this is one that I've adjusted, and I'll get close here so you can see what the gap is. It gives you a very proper gap, and I had to do a little dremeling. But I didn't have to remove as many screws as I thought. Now this is from factory. This is the factory gap. And if you can see down in here, you can see how big that gap is. So I was incorrect before. After taking the other side apart, I had mentioned there was 1, 2, 3, and a screw over here would be 4. But it turns out that this one here, you leave that one in place. All you have to do is pull these 2 out, and the one that's right here, and I'll show you that. And so let's take these 2 out. here's the third one. Okay, so this is the area where the majority of the work takes place, is in this hole right down there. Now I want to show you something here. Now that the screw's out, you can see that I can actually push this closed. The J-nut doesn't fit in there very well. It needs to go more rearward, so we have to use a little Dremel. There, you can see that they're not concentric. The nut on the inside and the plastic part on the outside. So I close the lid. Now with the lid closed, get a little more light on it. With the lid closed, we've removed this bottom screw down here. There's a J-nut that's on the bezel. And then we remove the one here. Those are the two. You can see it's loose. And then the top is loose. Now to get it off, there's a clip on the inside here that holds this lower section in. That's why there's no other screw here. So what we have to do to get this off is I have to pry it out a little bit. So let me set the camera down for that. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to pull this out a little bit here. And I've got to get my fingers in here and pull this out, and then it should pop right off. Let's get that back. There we go. And that pops right off. Now, inside here is a clip. You can see the clip there. It's right here. What we need to do next is we need to take that J-clip off. And that's the J-clip that we're going to remove from that area right there. We're going to do a little dremeling work on it to make it so that it will slide a little more rearward. And by going rearward, when we tighten it back down, it's going to work a little better. A couple of things are going on here. Number one, the J-clip needs to move forward, like I mentioned. You can see this little gap that's in here. And if I push it forward, it won't go forward at all. Because what's happening is this piece of plastic and some of this plastic here is in the way of the lower side of this going forward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this off, and then we're going to take a Dremel to some of that in there to clear it so that it can go forward just those couple millimeters. Now the other thing that's going to happen, we need to clear out some room for this bolt that's going to go through here. This bolt's going to eventually go through here and screw down. Now once the J-clip's off, you'll see that there's a threaded portion on the bottom, and part of this bolt sticks out. Well, that also runs into this. So what I've done on the other side, and I'm going to do on this side, is I got a pretty heavy lock washer, and I'm going to put that in there so that the bolt doesn't go quite down as far as it did before. We don't need all of these extra 1/4 of an inch sticking out the bottom anyhow, so I'm just bringing the head up a little higher so I don't have to cut out as much of this to make clearance for it. Okay, and that's what a J-nut looks like. And this barrel on the bottom where the threads are, that actually hits some of the plastic that's down in this area here. So we're going to Dremel some of that away so that this can slide forward. Now this is the only portion that you have to do. Once you've done this little work right here, you close the gap. Everything else is fine. You don't have to mess with anything else, any other cutting or anything like that. So all we have to do is make some room for this to go a little bit more in that direction towards the back of the bike. Okay, I got my Dremel out. I'm just using a little bit like this. Let's get that in focus, just a little bit. So I'm going to take a little bit of this off from this area here. So I'm ovaling it out a little bit so it'll slide a little further back. here's that hole. And we want this to go further in that direction. So I'm going to open up the back side of that, which is actually the front side. So I'm going to open up the front side so it'll go further aft. Just a little bit. Okay, so first we're going to put on the J-nut. Let's get that back in place. And good. That goes all the way in. And there's no little gap back here anymore. So I've moved it forward just a little bit. Okay, well that's interesting. I noticed something here on the left-hand side of the bike. It's starting to wear right in this area where it's go up and down. So I'm going to wrap a little more electrical tape around here. Where the heavy area of wear was. There, I got 3 coats in there. I think that'll help. Okay, so now what you do is, now this is the part you got to pull outboard. So you want to get this lined up here to the top portion. Let me back up a little bit. So we're going to line this up, get this up kind of flush here and up here. Now I'm going to pull this side out. And it goes right on like that. Pretty easy. Yeah. There we go. And that's all the way in. Now we'll put these screws in last. We're just doing a fit right now. And we're going to check our gap. We are popped in. And it's smaller. I don't know if you can see that. That's quite a bit smaller. Before, it was almost as far out as this feature here. If you look down in the hole here, you probably can't see it very well, but they're concentric now. This little tab here is now pushed into that little notch that goes up and down. Our gap is down to next to nothing now. So I just pulled that corner forward. So all of the work here to make this fit right is all in this corner. So it's a little bit of dremeling you have to do there to make the nut fit. And that nut comes off pretty easily, so you pop it off. I put the other side on about 4 times, and it works just fine. You're not going to hurt anything. And if you do stretch it out, just take some pliers to it and get it back in shape again. So that's where it was kind of wearing a little bit. So it's easy to get at again. So if it does wear again, or if I have any issues, I'll keep an eye on it. I kind of pulled a little bit of extra. This was a real tight before, so now it's got a little bit more slop. Not a lot, but a little bit more. So we'll snug this up and take a look at it when it's all done. Well, that last little turn there is where I was mentioning before. The screw is so long that it's hitting some of the plastic that's underneath here and is pushing it back out. So I guess I'm not done dremeling. Now you watch that. I could use a shorter bolt, but I don't have any handy. Now as I turn this in, I don't know if you can see that, as I turn it in, see how it popped back out like that? And that's because the bolt is too long. Now I could go and see if I can find some more washers. I could do that. I think I'm going to try that. That might be easier. Okay, I just put 1 washer additional, a thin one, along with that other lock washer in there. Let's see how that works. So far so good. Screw hasn't bottomed out yet. I want to make sure I get this nice and snug. Alright, we still have a tight gap. Let's see around this side here. Turn it sideways a little bit so you can see it. Let's get some light on it. Yep, that gap is considerably smaller. You can see that little tab right there is in the slot where it wasn't before. So that's good. And then we put the pad on. Something like this. We now have it on. We have the smaller gap there. There's a bit of work, not too much. And now the gap looks so much better. I want to point out one more thing here. I think these are carryover components from the Victory. This portion here. And I noticed that on my stock antenna, that I was always catching it when I walked around the back. So what I did was I made a little modification on it so that it stands up a little straighter. Okay, and I didn't put a shorty on. Some people put a short antenna on, but I understand the reception is not as good. So there's a easy fix for that. If you get in here, let's see if I can get my right here. There's this little rubber thing that it stops against, and all I did was trim off from this face about 1/8 of an inch. So I did that with just an X-Acto knife. Push that back on. Got 1/8 of an inch less. This goes up just a little bit further, and now it kind of matches this line here. Is what I was shooting for. But you could even make it go up higher by taking a little bit more off. Well, we got it all put back together now, and I want to just show you what the gap looks like. And it looks pretty good. If you take a look at it now, you can see that we don't have a big, huge gap in here anymore. And it's pulled in nice and tight. So, very small change. And looks better to me anyhow. So, if you got that problem and you want to fix yours, it's an easy fix. So hopefully that helped you out, and I guess that's it.